5 years ago, I quit drinking alcohol. Here's my journey. In order to have a better understanding of my journey, I need to go back a little bit farther than 5 years ago. So 5.5 years ago, I was living a lie. My life was beginning to fall apart. My marriage was failing. My career was about to end. I didn't recognize it one bit. I actually ignored it. And so, while I thought I was on an upward trajectory, my life was spiraling out of control and I couldn't see it. And so shortly after that, my marriage ended, as did one of my lifelong careers. And so as things started to crumble around me, quitting drinking really wasn't on my radar. On the contrary, I thought I was kind of in control. I thought I still had a grip on my life. When a friend of mine who I noticed they were having a lot of trouble with alcohol. It was obvious. They mentioned to me that they should take 6 months off, quit drinking for 6 months, and then they'd actually be able to get a grip and be able to manage it. I laughed. I said, "You need to quit drinking for a year and then you never need to touch it again." And he looked at me and he said, "You're right." And I said, "And if you go a year, I'll go with you." And I was being completely cynical because I just wanted to show him how easy it was. And he turned around and looked at me and he said, "If you go with me, I'll do it." And so I started my path. A couple of months into it, things were seemingly better. I had a little more money in my pocket and I had a lot more time. I started to sleep a little bit better as well. I wasn't spending money at the bar and I wasn't going out. And so I started to become a little bit more productive and I started to focus on myself and started a personal practice of yoga, meditation. Started to focus on my diet more as well. And then things got heavy. 4.5 years ago, or 6 months into quitting drinking alcohol, I emotionally started to fall apart. It became very apparent that I had been using alcohol as a coping mechanism in order to deal with emotions that, well, I didn't want to feel or I didn't want to rectify or deal with. And so I began to emote greatly. I started to refer to myself as a leaker. I would cry all the time for what was seemingly for no good reason. But believe me, there were plenty of good reasons going on. It was at that time I began to seek out psychological help. And so I started seeing a psychologist 4.5 years ago. With new support from professional help, I started to see my friend group fall apart. Individuals that I was previously hanging out with, well, they really didn't care for the new me. It was pretty hard for them to take, especially when they were taking on the old habits that I was dropping. And so I started to watch my friend group fall apart, started to change significantly, and then ultimately I got to the 1-year mark. And at 1 year, I made a big change. And so at my 1-year anniversary, 4 years ago, I quit doing cocaine. That was probably the biggest step that I had taken forward. And ultimately, I don't know if I would have ever gotten there had I not quit alcohol first. And so by giving up alcohol, it helped me understand some of my other demons, and it also helped me understand addiction a little bit better. I walked away from cocaine 4 years ago. And while things started to get a little bit better, that only lasted for a short bit because again, it got heavy. And so 3.5 years ago, I hit my emotional bottom. I'd quit alcohol, I'd quit cocaine, and I'd started to deal with the demons that, well, had caused me to use addiction as a substitute. And so 3.5 years ago, I had lost my work, I'd lost my home, I'd lost my marriage, I'd lost my reputation, and I was about $250,000 in debt. And then things started to change. 2 years into quitting alcohol, 3 years ago, I started to hit my groove. My practice had really kicked in. I had been meditating, I'd been doing yoga, I'd been journaling, and I've been taking care of my diet incessantly for 2 full years. And I could really start to feel the difference. My sleep improved greatly. My productivity went through the roof. And ultimately, my work became more meaningful, and therefore it became more valuable. And so I began to dig myself out of what I thought was an impossible hole. And slowly but surely, things started to get better. I started to make more money. I started to have more time. And so I could lean into my practice and I could reinvest in me. And ultimately, I really started to feel better. It wasn't faking it anymore. I really started to feel good. 3 years into quitting alcohol, I found myself completely debt-free. My business, well, I can't say it was on top of the world, but it was in a lot better shape than it was at 3 years previously. And so I started to gain control of my life. And ultimately, I started to recognize that I was in control of my decisions, in control of my choice. And that in itself began to motivate me in order to do better for myself and those around me. And so, not only did I start to hit my stride, but now I started to pick up the pace. And now, with meaning and with motivation, I started to find greater value in everything. 4 years into quitting drinking alcohol, I found myself with a new group of friends. I found myself in a new home. I found my business with a new mission. I found myself completely out of debt, and I had found myself investing in myself at a level which I never dreamed of, which is that I started to invest in the things that I wanted out of life. And in the end, I can't say life got easier, but holy cow, it got so much more meaningful, and I got so much more motivated to keep doing more. And now, 5 years into quitting alcohol, I can't guarantee that any of these things will happen for you. But what I can guarantee you is that there's a better version of you waiting for you. What are you waiting for?